Okay, well, again, thank you all for responding to the invite. If you've been involved, hopefully, in the front end of this process as far as reporting the data, again, we thank you for participating. And this webinar is designed to show you what you can receive in addition to the free reports that you're already going to receive, in a few weeks. So I guess I can turn this over to Denise, and she could help to sort of put things in perspective as far as the pages and everything. I'm going to go to, first of all, let me go to a report page. I think that will be helpful here.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all for dialing in. We will have 2 more webinars related to pulling reports in November and December. We're also working on potentially providing some time at the International Conference as well. If those of you who are on the call, if you're experiencing any kind of feedback on the phone, please let Mike know that. I'm experiencing some feedback now, Mike, a little bit. I'm not sure if it's my phone or your phones. What you see in front of you are predefined reports that we have added to the benchmarking platform. In the past, we've had a handful of these reports in the system, but we wanted to give more opportunity for users to pull information out of the benchmarking platform in a more effective manner. So we spent quite a bit of time developing these reports this year. You will see 3 levels. For everyone who participated in the Report on Giving survey this year, the scorecard is available for all participants. This is an enhancement over previous years where members had to pay $495 to access the scorecard. This is an advantage and a thank you for those of you who participated in the Report on Giving. This is available for free to all Report on Giving participants. Mike is going to demo kind of how that works. But moving up the ladder, additional reports for basic subscribers, 5-year trending, total gifts, cost to raise $1, return on investment by cash, all programs, across all programs, and production. And then a survey summary with no compensation data is available for those who subscribe to the basic, which is $695 for the year. And then additional reports for the 3rd level are more deep dives by program, along with section summaries from the actual Report on Giving data that will give you an opportunity to really get a little bit more granular with retrieving reports. The interface has changed a little bit over last year. For anyone who's dialed in who worked with Report Writer, please send me an email behind the wall at denise@ahp.org. That's denise@ahp.org. And we can talk about the reports that you may have created in the past. We did look at usage, and there might have been 1 or 2 users in the past who accessed Report Writer. We found that our members were not using the reports because it was a little too daunting to create them, so we completely overhauled them this year. Mike, is that what you wanted me to say?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I just wanted to address that, and then there's a, certainly a way for people to try and get customized reporting from AHP as well.
Yes, we have added an option through the bookstore to order custom reports, but again, it's all a conversation. We can certainly work with members who have special needs. We have gone so far as to create system slide decks for members who have done presentations to their philanthropy groups. So everything's on the table, provided we have enough advance notice to come up with something that works for everyone. So we're totally flexible in that regard. Mike, are you ready?
Great. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me take this back. This was helpful just so everybody could see what you're getting for the level of access, whether it's free or if you're subscribing. Let me go back to the home page and just show you how to access this. So what we're talking about here is predefined reports and also comparison groups. So let's go to define reports first. And what I'll do is
Mike,
free.
you're breaking up. So I'm not sure what
Oh.
phone you're on, but you broke up just now.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm getting a text that or a message that it is breaking up. I'm on my cell phone. I thought that was a better choice. Let me see if there's something I can do here. I guess I could try and dial back in on our office phone. You want me to go ahead and try and do that?
Yeah, I think so. And for those of you who've
Okay.
dialed in, I think they can just hold on, right, Mike? You can hang up and dial back in, or we all get cut off.
No, it should be fine. I'm not going to stop the meeting. It'll just be, should just be,
Okay, great.
seconds. Okay.
Thank you guys for your patience. Mike's going to dial in. This is the first time that's happened with his phone. So thank you guys for your patience. Just a second.
Hello, it's Mike again. Is that sounding better?
Much better. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Again, I apologize for that. Sorry for the interruption there. Let me just make sure. It looks like we still have everybody based on what I'm seeing here. So, again, apologize for that. Okay. Well, what I was saying is I wanted to go in and just show you what was available as far as the free access. And so what Denise had mentioned is the scorecard. So that's what I'm clicking on here. And you'll see based on this screen that you have a drop-down menu and you can check on comparison groups. I'm going to go back into explaining how to create comparison groups and you can see what's available. But basically, each year AHP comes up with their own comparison groups based on what most participants would like to see. It's usually basing it on geographic regions. You can see we've got U.S. and Canada, or it could be just overall for that region, for the whole report rather. And then there's comparison groups that are saved, and I'll show you that as well from previous years. So there's a whole list of comparison groups that are already created. And just to make this easy, I'm going to go ahead and use one of those just to demonstrate this. So we're just going to take the 2016 report on giving participants US. And then if I go down and choose view slideshow, what you'll see is some background as far as how the scorecard works, what it shows. It's basically showing a lot of the calculations that you would use to measure ROI and cost to raise $1. And again, at the top, you can just navigate here, so you can go to the next slide to give you some background on interpreting what a cost to raise $1 and return on investment measure would illustrate, whether it and how you would match with that based on your organization. Okay, this is the actual scorecard table, and again, this would be free. You can see that it's showing my organization, which is Demo Hospital, and so obviously if you were creating this, you would include your organization. Gives you some very specific calculations. If you hover over any of these, you're going to see a quick definition for each of these, and then it gives you breakdowns. You have a mean, you have a median, and then some percentiles. And then down at the bottom, it shows the number of organizations in the comparison group and a number of organizations reporting data. Sometimes that will change depending on who answers what question. If someone doesn't answer all of the questions, some of these numbers may be different as far as valid data versus the number of organizations. What you can also do is export this. Down here you can see as a CSV file, so you can get it into a database format if you wanted to manipulate it. Let's go back up here and go to the next slide. This gives you an idea graphically of cash and production for the 2016 U.S. Participants, and then the Demo Hospital. So this would be your organization showing on the graph as well. And again, looking at how you compare. This is the same thing for cash and production. So basically, what you can do with this, it's not just a one-time show. I mean, you can go back into this at any point, and you could choose a different comparison group, and it would still allow you to be able to recalculate that based on whatever comparison group you want on those particular monitors. And so the second level here, this was what Denise was describing as the basic level. So again, for this, there would be a fee that you pay to AHP, and you would have access to clearly the scorecard, but then also everything in this middle level here. And I think the first one, the one that would provide you the most information is it's basically called the board monitors. Let me go back and I'll just choose the same comparison group, which would be US. And what this does is it will give you a 5-year trend. So all you do is pick the most recent year that you want, and we'll just leave 2016 in. And then when I go to a report, it will show this year, but then it'll also show the previous 4 years in a number of different areas. So let's set that up, and then the report comes out in Excel. I'll go ahead and open that up. So you can see down at the bottom here, there's a number of different tabs in this spreadsheet. And based on the comparison group that we chose, which is 2016, you can see where, let's see, down here, the median, basically my focus group isn't showing up here. I don't think that when I set up the data, I didn't include endowment income, I don't think, or endowment, total endowment. But the point would be that you can see the trending for that same comparison group over time, all the way back to 2012. and it goes into a number of different categories here. And look at okay, here's the focus group. So this would be your organization in the example, and if you had participated in a number of years prior to that, then that would show up as well. And so you have return on investment, cash, and then production, and cost to raise $1. So there's a number of different areas here that you can gauge based on the comparison group that you choose. Back to this, and there's 3 other reports here. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. These will not show 5-year trends like the board monitors I just showed you, but again, it would be the same type of thing where you pick a comparison group and then you can look at, we'll just use the same group just to make it similar, and then you can just come up with a table. Again, I don't have any information in here from my made-up numbers, but you can see here, based on the U.S. data for 2016, you can see how these important measures are shown. The important thing to remember about the comparison groups is that you want to have it be robust enough as far as what you're choosing so that the numbers are actually meaningful. Depending on how narrow your focus is, you could get down to a point where the numbers will perhaps show. We have to have a minimum, there has to be a minimum of 6 organizations in order for that to show. But again, if you're getting down to that level, you would probably want to use the report with some caution because it's not going to really show you exactly what you're looking for because you just don't have enough comparison.
Mike, this is Denise. Did you show
Yep.
the callers how to set up a comparison group of their own yet?
No, not yet. But I think I can probably jump to that then because I think this is pretty. I was just going to do the predefined reports, but
well, go ahead and go through that. I just wanted to make sure that people understand the reason why we limit comparison groups to no less than 6 is because there are rules for performance benchmarking. There is a safe harbor rule with the Department of Justice that says that you can do performance benchmarking for the purposes of improving your operation, provided it's no less than 5. We have no less than 6. And also, it has to be hosted at a third party. It can't be hosted by the organization, which is why AHP does this as a member benefit. So there are certain rules that are in place, and that's why there's a limit there. But as Mike said, the more granular you get on a comparison group, the less valuable the data is, because you really want to see more industry trends rather than, going all the way down to the nth degree on which groups that you. So, for example, you don't want to have a comparison group of, I don't know, hospices with, outpatient, inpatient services of a certain number of beds if the return is only 6. I'm not sure how helpful that would be for you. So that's what you need to think about when you're creating your comparison group. So Mike, continue to talk about the reports. I just wanted to make sure people understood when you were saying 6, why it's 6. And now I'll go back to the phone.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Actually, I think it would be a good time to just jump in because I'm mentioning comparison groups here. And there's really the other side of this because I'm using comparison groups that have already been created. But basically, what I was showing, whether it's a scorecard, these reports for the basic subscription or the advanced, they're all going to pull off of comparison groups that are either public groups that AHP has already provided or groups that you could create yourself. So why don't I jump off and actually go into the comparison groups? I think that would probably be a good idea at this point, just so that you can see what we're talking about. When you bring up this link, you can see under here, it says public groups. Okay, this is going to be available to everyone as far as trying to create your own comparison group, these are the public groups. So this is what's already been created, and you can see historically that there's a tremendous amount of detail here going back to 2012. Now, the check mark, the reason why you were seeing only certain groups when I was bringing up the scorecard or the board monitors or those other reports is because the only ones that are going to show up for you to choose from are ones that you have checked. So I just happen to have checked a few. You could easily uncheck this and then it won't be included in the menu when you bring up a report, or if you want to choose something else, that's, it's purely up to you. But these have been created by AHP to anticipate the kind of comparison groups that people would use most often. And what I'm going to do then is show you, based on this page, how you could actually create your own personal group. Now, this is me signed in as test person. And you can see I already have some groups that I've already set up. And this would be something that would go just to my login. And so it's individually, I would see my personal groups, and then I would see the public groups. Within your organization, if other people have ability to, or if you wanted to share perhaps a group that you made up, all you need to do, and this again is up on a legend here, that you can see where you can move a group from a personal folder to others at your organization. If I wanted someone in another area to take a look at this comparison group that I set up, I just need to click this arrow. And then when I go down into shared groups, again, this will be available for other people within your organization. It's not anything you see in shared groups or personal is not going to be anything that other people will see that aren't within your organization. So let's go back and actually see. I'll just take you through how to set up a comparison group. I think the easiest way is to just click on this new group wizard. There's a couple of areas here to just get to filter through. I think we'll just choose non-data sharing organizations in the US. And then you can choose years here. I'll just leave it at 2016. And then based on that, let me just go down and say that we're not specifying an affiliation, and just do this under system, I guess would be the easiest. Now this will give me the organizations that meet that criteria. I have 52. And you could choose a number of different variables there from the drop-down menu, you can see. And then you can just save this. So I'd be like, let's see, US. And when I save it, it's going to show up under my personal group. So if I did go back to a predefined report, and we'll just go back to the scorecard. When you look at the comparison groups now, you'll see that that shows up. And on any of these, if you don't want to include them, because clearly you have a lot of public groups from AHP that you may or may not want to have listed in a drop-down menu, it might get too overwhelming. You can just go back and uncheck any of these. And if at some point you start to get too many personal groups, or they say there's something that you don't, you just not really interested in the group anymore, and you just don't want to have it cluttered, you can just hit delete right here. It'll ask you if you want to delete this, and we'll just say okay. And that will come off of our personal groups. Obviously, it's important to remember if you're sharing that with someone else within your organization, because if you did delete it, then it's going to be deleted from them as well. Now, there's another option here for combining groups. Again, you're going to look at certain criteria. Let's just say we want to, we'll just take two of ours that we've already set up. It shows non-data sharing organizations with fundraising expenses from 500K to $1 million, and then I can't remember who's in this one, but I'll just throw it in test here. And I'm just going through that quickly. So we're going to create a group. So we've successfully created that. So let's go back to the comparison group list here. And let's see, where is it? Right here. So again, you would be thinking specifically about what you wanted to include, what you didn't want to include. One of the things that's interesting from going through this, if you want to create your comparison group, it's probably easier for the most part, unless you're very specific about the criteria and you kind of know what you want to do. It's sort of easier to work backwards from some of the public groups that AHP's already created. Because when you bring up these groups, you'll see that there's a, well, this gives you the list of the comparison groups, but if you go into the groups when you're creating it, you can actually uncheck or check organizations within that. So you would work out with US, and let's say you wanted to specifically exclude certain organizations. You can go through the list and just click them off, and they won't be included. And so by working backwards, it might be easier to get to the comparison group that you're looking for, rather than creating it yourself. Okay, well, that was a lot of information. I don't know if you have any questions, but that's the short version of how to basically create a comparison group. And again, any of these reports, anything that you've created, you'll be able to choose to run a report with any of the personal groups or any of the public groups that's already been set up. So we'll just choose. These are, Denise had mentioned some of the new reports. These are for advanced subscribers. These, if you've been familiar with the platform previously as far as the reports, these are all new. Everything in this section A through J, actually this fundraising ratios report is new as well. These follow each section of the report as, if you recall, when you entered your data, when you were actually participating in the survey. So we'll just go ahead and pull out one. Just do the first one, I guess, basic information. So here's my comparison group list. You can see the new one that I combined, plus the other ones that I had checked off. I'll just go with US here. and you'll be able to see it's in the same format as the scorecard and as some of the other reports, where you're going to see mean, median, and percentiles. But each of these are related to that specific section A that goes back to the demographic data, basically, that you entered as far as the beginning of the report. And if you're trying to follow it, if you just looked at basically the survey itself, each section of the report will allow you to be able to get back to that, and then you can actually pull up a report that covers each section in the order that it was reported within the survey. This is another report that's new. I'm going to go ahead and choose US again here. And it's basically a view of all of the important metrics that you would probably be using on a regular basis within your organization. On all of these reports, you could choose to include your organization or not, depending on what you wanted to show, as far as the table. And again, each of these, whether they're charts or, graphs rather, or tables, they can be either exported as CSV or in the graph example as an image. You can download anything that you run, and then by saving the comparison groups, you can go back anytime you want and then alter that, or try to come up with another way of looking at the data that you want to get. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions. I think that's a lot of information I've gone over, I understand. But the main focus would be that you have the ability to get additional information from the report that you're already receiving, which is obviously static. And this would allow you to interact with the database in areas perhaps that would be very specific to your region, your type of organization, just looking at systems, just looking at community hospitals, however you wanted to look at it. It may not be that specific in the report, and then it would be something that you would, in addition to having the report where it basically looks at the current year, something like this monitors where you're looking at 5 years of data would be very helpful to see. Clearly, not every organization participates every year. So what it's doing is when you choose the comparison groups, it's going to be the organizations that participated in that particular year based on the criteria. But it's not going to be the exact same organizations. But it should give you, based on the comparison group that you set up, it should give you comparative data because you're looking at things at a very specific level. Say community hospitals, you're not including hospitals. You're not including hospice care or something like that, and with your data pool. So did anyone have any questions? I'm looking. I don't have anybody asking anything. Denise, was there something that you wanted me to cover that I haven't covered yet?
So did you cover adding a variable, like adding a variable within the comparison group? Not just a pre-done comparison group and working backwards?
Oh, right. Okay, so going into creating, okay, got it.
Yep. And you do have a question. So for reports that do not have a fee, we use comparison and predefined. Marissa, it's the scorecard. You would all the reports are predefined, and for reports that do not have a fee, it is the scorecard that allows you to do comparison groups. That's free to everyone who participated in Report on Giving. I hope that answered your question.
Right, exactly. So you would have the ability to go into comparison groups for free, basically for AHP. You could go in here and you could either use the one of the comparison groups that's already set up publicly, or you could create your own. But then you can go back into the predefined report for the scorecard.
And that would display, that would display the comparison group. So you would select the scorecard, which is a predefined report, which is available to anyone for free who participated in Report on Giving. And then you would select the comparison group that you want to compare the metrics that you developed through participation against all the others. And she said thank you, so I think she understands what the access levels are. But then for anything else, that's a subscription fee. Exactly.
It's not a one-time usage for the scorecard, but again, you're only going to receive the metrics or the categories rather that are listed here, and you can clearly receive a lot more and a lot more history if you go on to the next levels of reporting. Let me go back into comparison groups here. Actually, go back into the new group. So as far as the setting up, this is basically setting up the group. So we have US, we're going to choose US, and we'll choose 2016 and 2015. And then we'll just choose entity type, and we'll just go down and just do community hospital. No affiliation, and we'll just choose organization instead of system. Okay, so that comes up with 43 organizations. So what I would do at this point is save this. I'll just say
that was 2015 and 2016, just to remind you.
Right. My light just went off in my office. 2015 and 2016.
Community hospital participants. And for those of you who are dialing in and listening in, you can, that description that's to remind you how you built it. And you know, that's so that you will remember how you built the comparison group.
Exactly, and there it is showing up. This is the comparison group that we just set up. So we have 43 organizations in that. What I was talking about before, about unchecking or checking, you can see in here, this is the way I was talking about maybe moving backwards. If you make sort of if you create the comparison group off of a public group that AHP has already set up, you can go in and either delete, not delete, but you can uncheck or check next to organizations that you wanted to be included or not, or did not want to be included. And since you already know the criteria, it's going to be a wider comparison group than probably you want. But you could actually go through and by unchecking, you could create a comparison group sort of backing into it instead of trying to think of everything up front, which we just did here to get to this group. It may it's just something to keep in mind. It may be easier to sort of uncheck organizations. But in any event, I mean, with this group, you've already created it. And so what you can do then is go back and, like I said previously, you could go ahead and share that within your organization. So you move it down, and it didn't show up, did it?
No, you need to, when you
I
open
needed to have
that,
it open.
yeah, you can click on it, I think, and you choose. So click on that button again. Now the one that you, go back up.
Okay.
The one that you created, see the arrow? Yeah.
Right.
You just went back. Yeah, so the...
Gotcha. Yeah, I was trying to drag
there
it.
you go. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's no dragging. Yep.
And then if you wanted to remove it and just move it back to your personal group, then you would just do the opposite, and then now it's not going to be shown.
Yep. And you can also delete it using the trash bin icon.
Right. Exactly. And then based on this, now that you have your comparison group, you can go back into any of the predefined reports that are already set up.
That you have access to.
Right. So depending on your level of access, if you wanted to look at this for a basic subscriber, if you were looking at 2016 and you wanted to look at, well, actually it's not going to, because it's going to show 5 years. So that comparison group doesn't really work for that. Let me just try and just go with a more specific report. We'll just say direct human resources. So we're limiting this to 2015 and 2016 participants.
So do your start fiscal year 2015 just to make sure it pulls correctly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There you go. There you go.
And then again, you can export that as to get into a CSV file where you could just go through and based on everything in that section, you're going to receive a tremendous amount of data. If there are some issues with disclosure where we can't show it, you'll see that it will pop up here. And you can see when you're getting down here, the number of organizations reporting valid data in some of these categories obviously is too few.
And it's because some of our participants don't have campaign officers or they don't report it out at that level. One of our callers, Priscilla Modari, had a question. What are the fees for the other reports, and is it one time? This is a subscription service, so your subscription is good through the next reporting cycle. Members who, again, participate in Report on Giving get access to the platform and the scorecard with comparison group functionality at no charge. If you would like access to the 5-year trends and the other 3 reports, that is $695 for the year, and you can have multiple users. So if there are folks in your analytics department that would like to have access and can create comparison groups, that $695 fee counts for the number of users within the subscription. And then additional reports for advanced subscribers, that is $12.95 for the year. If you subscribe now, the subscription would be good through the next data collection cycle, which is April, ideally, since we did so much work on the platform. If you renew your subscription for next year, it would be April to April. So that's the full information there. You can also, if you, as we mentioned earlier, if you want to work with us on creating a report, happy to work with you on that. Just give us some running time, and if there is an hourly fee or we do have a product on the bookstore for those people who want to order custom reports that might be a little bit more in depth. That price is published as well, and it's a one-time fee. But we can also do by the hour if there's reporting that you'd like us to create for you.
Yeah, thanks, Denise.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that that pretty much covers it. I mean, there's a number of different areas here that I've not gone into detail in as far as the actual data itself. But I think you can see when you're looking at any of these reports, if you're able to throw your group into the comparison, it's a very easy snapshot of how you're comparing to everyone. And if you're looking at historical data and trying to get historical data, even if every organization is not the exact same organization each year that participates, it still gives you a lot of trending when you're looking at this board monitor report, which is really comprehensive when you start looking at what you're looking at as far as the metrics, and then being able to show 5 years of history. It's very, very good at a glance to see what's going on and what the trending is. And then the other ones, the reports within the section, as far as the advanced describers, I've really just touched the surface as far as the amount of detail that's available within each of these. I mean, I didn't go through the whole slideshow. We don't really have time to do that, but there's a tremendous amount of information here in each of these section reports that goes right to sort of the survey form itself and following as you enter the data. And not everyone participated in every single section. There were clearly some sections where perhaps you, in expenses, maybe you just gave us, total direct human resources, indirect, and non-labor. You didn't get into, all of the detail about salaries or something like that, or maybe, you just didn't fill out a certain section. Obviously, you can still access that even if you didn't complete it. Your organization numbers won't show up, but it still gives you an insight into a lot of detail that you're not going to see in the actual the hard copy report. So let's see if we have any other. Does anybody have any other questions? If you do, I think everybody has my contact information. I think I responded to everybody personally who signed up for the webinar. So feel free to reach out to me, contact me by email or by phone if you have any questions. We saw another question from Marisa. She's asking that they did the abbreviated survey, which would be like the core survey this year, and how will that affect the reporting? Well, basically, it would definitely affect when I'm looking at, say, if we just brought up the scorecard here, it's going to affect the ability for you to see how your group compares, because you wouldn't necessarily provided all of the information that the other groups did. But that being said, you can still see what everyone else did, and at the top here, you're only going to see where you actually reported data. So if you, reported most of these categories, then you're going to be able to see how you compare. But even if you didn't, you're still going to be able to see what everyone else did based on the comparison group that you choose. So I hope that answers your question.
And thanks, Mike. And this is one of the reasons why we opened up the scorecard as a complementary benefit. We want members to get comfortable reporting this information, because we do think that over time, the more data you have, the more effective your operation will be. So we wanted to expose you to it, but we also didn't want it to be so onerous for small shops that they couldn't contribute the information, which is why we did the core reporting versus the larger benchmarking. But we engaged in a lot of conversations during this cycle, and we learned a lot. So, we probably will be adding a few more definitions to the platform, but we think that we've kind of hit on something that can grow with time, and we're really excited about the product we have to offer now. And we really hope that for those of you who have other questions, feel free to send us an email or ask questions of Mike. And we're open to any and all feedback. So thank you guys so much for your participation and for dialing in today. Does anyone have any other questions before we adjourn? And Mike, did you cover everything you wanted to cover today?
Yes, thanks, Denise. Yeah, I think the main area was just to sort of get everybody an idea of the tiers of, level that you would be at. And I think, when you realize that it all works off the comparison group, then basically, the predefined reports are pretty self-explanatory once you decide who you want to compare to. So that was the main issue I think that we wanted to, or main points that we wanted to get across.
Okay, we have 6 minutes left. We're being very efficient. So thank you guys for your time and for dialing in. There will be another webinar scheduled in November. We had planned to record this one. Mike, I don't know if we can eliminate that gap with the audio issue.
Right.
We can talk about that offline.
Exactly.
Thank you, everyone. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for dialing in. We really appreciate your participation this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.